What connects Criminal Monkeys, the Croydon Under-12 Chess Championships, and LCD sound system? Well, the answer is that all of them are in One Sinha Lifetime, the new autobiography of Paul Sinha. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Gareth. Lovely to see you.
It's great to see you. Your book, which I've read, is funny, it's moving, it's interesting, it's thought-provoking, but it's always enjoyable. Congratulations, you must be really pleased with it.
Thank you. It's been quite a trek. I decided in 2020 during the lockdown to start writing an autobiography so that if publishers were interested, I had something for them.
Mm,
And then the lockdown eased and I just didn't have time to work on it. But in 2022, as you know, I took a show to the Edinburgh Festival
mm,
uh, that was sort of playfully about the art of writing an autobiography. And it was called One Sinha Lifetime. And by putting myself out there at Edinburgh in 2022, finally I got some interest from publishing companies, and it all started getting serious. So it's
mm.
lovely.
And you can absolutely hear your voice throughout it. Certainly, anybody who's seen you do stand up or particularly saw you do that show, but you can absolutely hear you throughout. And some autobiographies are a jumble of anecdotes, but this isn't really. A bit like your Edinburgh shows, everything has a purpose, everything is connected, and there are some callbacks. It feels very thoughtfully constructed. Did you have a clear idea at the outset what sort of autobiography this would be and what it wouldn't be?
Well, I always wanted it to be a big book. I wanted to talk about big
Mm,
issues and not just be a sort of and then I did this, and then I did
mm,
this, and then I did this. But in terms of structure, as you know, there's a coda at the end of the book. That was the first thing that I thought of.
mm,
Was the coda as a callback to something that I said in passing halfway through the book.
mm,
And so, like Edinburgh shows, writing a book needs to have some thought as to structure,
mm.
so that everything sort of clicks together. But it took a lot of writing and a lot of rewriting,
Mm.
and a lot of rewriting and more rewriting until we got it into a position where we were happy with it.
Yeah, and it's a great book. It took me two sittings to get through it all. I really enjoyed doing it. And
Thank you.
a lot of it was interesting because some stuff I knew through your Edinburgh shows and through knowing you, and a lot of stuff I didn't. But there are some themes that for me came through, which may not be what you intended, but they were what came through for me. One was family. One's finding your place in the world, and another's keeping perspective on things. And all of those just kind of, for me, recurred. If we look at family, for example, there's the family you're born into and the family you find along the way. And in your book, all of that comes together gloriously at the end. But your natural family, your mum, your dad, your sister, etc., they shine in this book. For me, they're supportive, they're not judgmental. Your dad is hilarious. Lily's incredible. It must be nice to kind of have an opportunity to kind of put that out into the world.
Well, in that sense, I'm a stereotypical Asian man. In that I'm obsessed with my family, and my family are obsessed with me.
Mm,
It's always been that way, and
mm,
it's not everyone's lucky enough to have a family that are obsessed with their well-being. But I've
mm,
always been lucky enough to have exactly that.
mm,
What's interesting is that caused the biggest conflict in the early part of my life,
mm,
which is that my parents had expectations for me to be a successful
mm,
doctor that wasn't quite the pattern, wasn't didn't play to my skill set.
mm,
So the unconditional love and support of my family proved to be something of an ironic obstacle in achieving my dreams, because they sort of got in the way. And so there's one of the things about the book is how I managed to sort of not exactly fight my way out of it, but stumble my way out of the
mm,
path that had been set out for me. Because what one of the things I think is noticeable my life story is things happen by accident. At
mm,
various points in the story, failure begets success.
mm,
Getting something wrong, failing an exam here or there, ending, a life path that really is a life path that's formed by failure
mm,
ends up opening doors. If I'd been a successful doctor, I'd never have done comedy. And if I'd
mm,
never done comedy, I'd never been a professional quizzer. And if I'd never been a professional quizzer, I'd never have met Oliver. So it's that whole sliding doors thing.
mm,
And I think one of the things for me is that not everything is planned in life.
mm,
Sometimes you just got to see where it takes you, because I'm known for being a doctor, a stand-up comedian, and a competitive quizzer, and none of those were really in my personal life plan. This wasn't a bucket list of dreams I was ticking off as I went along on with life. These were things that I fell into.
And reading it, it felt like there were a lot of correlations between comedy and quiz. You're talking about dying on stage, you're talking about being bruised and humiliated at quizzes. There must be something in your psyche that kind of doesn't put you off when you're in that sort of situation.
Well, I mention it in passing, but I think both of them, there's a lot of narcissism. There's a lot of I want to be at the center of a
Mm,
narrative, at the center of a story. I
mm,
think a lot of people that do stand-up comedy have a need to be noticed.
mm,
And a lot of people that do quizzing are also desperate to be noticed. They
mm,
want those little triumphs here and there for the conversation to be about them and the conversation to go, oh, well,
mm,
well done in the entertainment genre on Saturday. That's a great stuff. These things perk us up and make
yeah.
us feel happy. The statistics that are openly on display every week in the online quiz league and the quiz league of London, we
Mm,
look at those statistics and we see how other people did on our questions, and we cheer ourselves up if we get something right that someone else didn't know. It's all part of a sort of low level narcissism that I think links both quizzing and comedy. They are linked by that, the need to be liked and noticed.
and if you kind of equate, not equate, if you link that to sort of a little bit of obsessiveness, um, there can be problems, which brought me to the third one of the things where chapter 16, you start with the line, real life is more important than quiz. And you talk about, dying on stage and seeing someone dying in real life, the health issues of family, etc., which kind of brings you back to reality when you're kind of taking certain things too seriously. Is that something you have to remind yourself or has life just kept doing that for you?
All the time. As you know, my dad had a very major cardiac event in 1990,
Mm,
and so my family have always provided me with perspective.
mm,
I don't tend to over dramatize things. I just get on with it. It's really helped
mm,
since the Parkinson's diagnosis. They have a family around me go, all right, join the club. Let's all club in together and
mm,
fight these various things that are ailing us.
mm,
So perspective is a very important thing.
mm,
And my autobiography finishes in 2019. But of course, everything that's happened since 2020 with the lockdown and the organic growth of online quizzing,
mm,
and with it, there's the concomitant mental health problems that we see amongst people who find it difficult
mm,
to take in this level of attention, to deal with the level of attention they're suddenly having every week,
mm,
as people are now staring at them on a Zoom screen, expecting them to answer
mm,
questions in a very sort of melodramatic scenario. I worry for people that take quizzing too seriously,
mm,
because I think it's something I've been through.
mm,
Uh, and I've been kind of fortunate in my quizzing career that although there have been setbacks, the only major setback for me was the my third World Quizzing Championships, when I finished significantly down from what I've done the
mm,
previous year. But other than that, I've always been there or thereabouts at the level that I've wanted to be.
mm,
And so I've been sort of cheerfully happy with my role in quiz. And
mm,
then of course I've been lucky enough to go on the chase, and that is a privilege. It's a privilege to be paid for doing what you do.
mm,
And in a more indirect way, so many people want to be paid, as in they want to win money on quiz shows, and they don't necessarily realize that TV doesn't owe you. Just because you're good at quiz doesn't mean that TV producers have to come along, knock on your door, and say, "Go on, here's some easy money for you." It's more complicated than that, and we're not. And it's easy for me to say that because I've got the privilege of being on the chase. So it's easy for me to sit back and go, "Oh, don't take it too seriously. Don't take the financial side of it too seriously," because I'm making a decent living from being a quizzer. But there's all these things that cause people to be more stressed out and more anxious and have a tendency to mental health issues than they need to be, given that quizzing is a lovely, enjoyable hobby.
Yeah, we've seen situations where people forget that there is a human being at the other end of a drama, and
Yes.
I think that's something that's also worth remembering, that people are more important than quiz in the sense of us and our loved ones, but also other people as well. Um,
Yeah, I mentioned the first time that I finished in the top 10 in a Grand Prix.
mm,
And I rang my mate. As soon as I walked out, I rang my mate to tell him I finished top 10 of the Grand Prix. And he said, I just won 1,000 quid on the Grand National. His mum had recently died, and he put a bet on a horse
yeah.
called Mon Mome because it sounded like my mum.
Mm.
100 to 1 shot came in. He put 10 quid on 1,000 quid. And I suddenly felt really silly going, my story doesn't match. My story, yeah, I've got nothing compared to that story.
In terms of quiz, you talked about the sliding doors moment, which is interesting because that's exactly what I noted down. Your friend Simon Evans asked you to be on University Challenge to Professionals. You didn't win. You found yourself speaking to a lute player who pissed you off enough that you went and applied for Mastermind, which then led to an online discussion about you, which well done in finding an old post on quizzing, by the way. That's quite an achievement. Um, but then all of those things, you find out about the quiz circuit, then QLL, then played WQC, Oxford Open, you're against chasers, all putting yourself in a position where you're considered seriously for a chaser. In writing all of that, did you think, my God, my life is so, it's so tenuous. One, if I'd not decided to go back to my hotel room after that loop player and apply for
Oh,
Mastermind.
absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt that going on a university challenge stirred something in me.
Mm,
There was very much a feeling this I can't let this be my
mm,
last quiz. I've always loved quizzing. I was what
mm,
I didn't come to quiz from a vacuum. I was known as a quizzer at
mm,
medical school. I was the guy that used to clear out the quiz machines. I was a very keen quizzer, so I didn't come from a vacuum, and I wanted to take it seriously. But without this journey, I don't know if I'd ever have found the information. I would
mm,
have found it by. You'd think that I'd have found it by then, if that was my destiny. Anyway, but
mm,
it turned out that I needed to Google my name after being on Mastermind, and that's this. It's completely true that I went to my hotel room and applied for Mastermind impulsively, and then came back to drink in the hotel. That
mm,
bit's totally true. I was just, I've got to do something,
mm,
and I had no idea where this journey would take me. It didn't even occur to me that one day I'd be a professional quizzer. I just wanted to win a game show. I wanted to go on telly and win one episode of something.
yeah.
And it turned out that only happened when I did the chase. It was actually my first chase when I finally won an episode of a game show. I mean, what I would say to anybody who wants to get better is don't give up.
Mm,
Just keep it up. People say to me, "Oh, I'd love to go on the chase." I said, "Have you applied?" And they go, "No, not yet." I said, "Well, you're never going to get on the show if you don't apply."
mm,
And that's the same for all the game shows. And it's that piece of advice. Everyone seems to know it now. As far as I can tell, there's a pattern now where people get into quizzing, and in their first 2 or 3 years, they end up applying for everything and getting on stuff all over the place. And that's really good to see, because I think that's what you should do: is just have a go, put
mm,
yourself out. You never know what doors can. You just never know what doors can open.
mm. And it's not for everybody. That TV experience could be very daunting, and you talk about the mastermind experience and how it kind of can mess with your head and put you in a situation where you had your first question, which is meant to be the easy one, was one of these, oh, I can never remember if it's X or Y.
Yeah.
Um,
And
you know,
incidentally, in Tea Time Trivia, that exact question on Magellan's flagship came up again. And I sat there going, is it Trinidad or is it Victoria? Even all these years later, I sat there having the same dilemma all over again.
I mean, we all have those, as you say in the book. We all have those X and Ys. Have you ever found a way of trying to kind of solidify those in your mind and say, okay, this is one of those. This is how I'm going to remember it.
I have level ones
Mm,
like Microsoft and Apple and Bill Gates and Steve Jobs.
mm,
It always takes me time to unravel
mm,
which one was CEO of which company.
mm,
And then there are level fours that you keep getting wrong.
mm,
And like Gorecki and Penderecki,
mm,
which one wrote Threnody for the Victors of Hiroshima, which one wrote Symphony of Sorrowful Songs. And I now got Gore of Gorecki, I think, and Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
mm.
And I think, well, he was involved in sorrowful songs, and now I've got it. But so, sometimes you have to do something as silly as that to
Yeah.
to to nail the X or Y dilemma.
Yeah, but we all have to find a way. I found it very interesting reading the book and about your some of your struggles with learning things for the medical degree, and again, it just reminded me of quizzing. I've got a quote in front of me. I'd use every conceivable mnemonic to learn the names of bones, muscles, and tendons, but the three-dimensional awareness that was required to understand, and you kind of highlight the word understand, anatomy eluded me, and that kind of said to me there's some sort of you're more of a contextual learner, that understanding something is the key for you to retaining it. I mean, is that fair, or is it actually it's where spatial relationships
Well, I
are
definitely
involved and you
have
struggle?
spatial weaknesses, and that's why
Mm,
I struggle with the word genius.
mm,
When people say, "Oh, the quiz genius, Paul Sinha," it's like I'm not
mm,
a genius. I'm just somebody who worked very hard and who has
mm,
got a high IQ in certain areas, numbers and words, and a very
mm,
low IQ in other areas such as spatial awareness. I
mm.
am, I am what I am, as Gloria Gaynor once said. My brain, and this was shown spectacularly on Taskmaster, where I suddenly felt very isolated and very stupid week after week after week. And I know that I was there because they wanted to know how a clever person reacted to these tasks. And on Taskmaster, I just found myself unable to work out what was the right thing to do or the correct way to go about things again and again and again. And I felt very isolated at that point. But I think it serves a useful purpose of showing the world that people that you think are really clever have flaws and weaknesses just like everyone else.
And there are different types of not intelligence, aren't there? And
Exactly.
there's knowledge, and there's lateral thinking, and there's thinking outside the box, and certainly those latter two are great if you're on Taskmaster to try and do the thing that they would never have anticipated and would be absolutely hilarious.
I mean, I don't
Um,
know if this is true, but I've found that since my dopamine started depleting, my
mm,
lateral thinking has gone down a bit. My
mm,
ability to think outside the box. I've got no diminishing of the learning of facts,
mm,
but I noticed on fighting talk that I wasn't as good at defending the indefensible as the last round as I used to be once I
mm.
started depleting in dopamine. So, I think the brain is a very complex organ, and
Yeah.
strengths and weaknesses can turn up at different places.
Well, that's interesting because you say in the book quite starkly, realistically, Parkinson's will eventually stop me quizzing at the highest level. And for many people, Parkinson's is about shaking.
Yeah.
And you've just mentioned dopamine. So can you explain how the changes in the brain or your body might then stop you quizzing at the highest level? Because for many people, it's just and me included, it's not clear what the impact can be.
Well, dopamine is related to forms of
Mm,
dementia. That's one of the stark truths I have to
mm,
face. I don't feel that I have that, but I feel that I have to work harder than I used to remember things,
mm,
and feel that I'm very much joined the flashcard mob,
mm,
and I feel that has become a necessity for me to try and remember things. And you don't know necessarily when you forget stuff. Is this something that you're meant to be worried about, or is this just a natural process?
mm,
At the OQL this week, there was a pair on recent golf major champions, and I didn't know either. And I know that I have known both.
mm,
But is that just a case of I'm not flashcarded it, I'm not put into long-term memory, or is this something I should be worried about? My answer is don't worry about it. Move, get on. Everything. I've always felt with quizzing, everything that you didn't know is something that you will know next time. Something that you will know next time. And there is a certain advantage to not doing well at quizzes, which is that you learn more from the experience. Oliver calls it topsoiling. Whenever I get something wrong that I used to know, just clear the topsoil. And he's right. You just don't get too stressed about it. Just move
mm,
on. I mean, I remember back in 2011 or 2012 at a Grand Prix where I couldn't remember Jennifer Aniston's name for 90 minutes. For 90 minutes, I sat there going, who is that actress that plays Rachel in Friends? And it just wouldn't come to me. So it
mm,
doesn't matter whether you've got Parkinson's or not. These things happen. And for me, you just get on with it. You don't. There are far more important things going on in the world than whether you can remember the Wyndham Clark and the Schaufler guy. Yeah,
yeah.
it,
Throughout the book, I don't get a sense of somebody who is wallowing in self-pity. I get the sense of somebody who is aware of the fortunate things in your life. Is that kind of generally kind of a fair assessment of where you are?
I have ridden my luck big time over the years, as you know from the book, various accidents,
Mm,
fortuitous incidents. I consider myself privileged to be on telly, quizzing, doing a job that I love. I think anybody that does a job that they love is privileged in the extreme. A lot of people have to work really, really hard. I'm a comedian and a quizzer, and although it might feel like hard work at times,
mm,
it's not compared to so many other people. But I'm also aware that my Parkinson's, lots of people have their equivalent of my Parkinson's, whether it's heart conditions or neurological conditions or cancers or mental health issues. A lot of people are really struggling, especially since the pandemic.
mm.
And I think it's far more important that you empathize and you connect with other people than put yourself on a pedestal and go, look at me, boo hoo 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 hoo. Just
Mm.
get on with life. My dad's been through far worse than I have. My mum had a double mastectomy for breast cancer. My sister rarely goes out due to the challenges of a son with learning difficulties.
Mm.
She rarely goes out socially. We're all struggling in our own ways. And so self pity is the last thing on my mind.
But nonetheless, you are still kind of keeping an eye on how Parkinson's might be affecting your quizzing. And I've noticed in the last 5 years that every now and then you'll come up with an incredible result and it'll be like tagged along with fuck Parkinson's and stuff. How does it feel each time that you realize or it reminds you that actually you have that seat at the very highest table, you're able to compete at that level and you know you're still on top of it all.
It's lovely, and not least because there's now two things I used to be very good at that I'm no longer very good at, which is the World Quizzing Championships and the EQC/Olympiad in
Mm,
individuals. I seem to have lost the ability to know exactly where the syllabus lies in those. I don't know
mm,
quite how it's happened, but in domestically and in OQL and in QLL, my results have been really, really good. So, just be happy with the things that be happy with the things that bring you happiness, and
mm.
be realistic and say you can't win them all.
Um, can't win them all, but one of the things in the book, one of the kind of the two kind of huge bits towards the end is you and the BQC. And you were running out of dopamine, I was running out of time. I had to win the British Quizzing Championships in September. This would be probably be my last chance. The previous year you'd come second. You say it's a distant second, but nonetheless, out of that field, it's the second. And you talk about in the book about Oliver helping you and helping you to prepare for the BQC. Can you tell me a bit more about how that dynamic worked?
Yeah, I decided after the Worlds I wanted to take the BQC. I missed the Worlds that year because I had an MRI scan on the Saturday morning, and I decided I wanted to take the BQC seriously. And so I just sort of domesticized, if that's even a word,
Mm,
my revision. I just got rid of all international quizzing from my learning. And
mm,
Oliver was really helpful in just asking me and asking me and asking me and asking me. I mean, I wrote the revision questions, but
mm,
Oliver was very good at asking me them again and again and again. And I just had a knack for that year for working out what might come up. There were questions there that I just went, yep, was absolutely expecting that one to come up. And the one that I stressed was that the relationship with Taylor, she just started going out with Joe Alwyn. I just thought this is definitely coming up. And it turned out to be the difficult question that I absolutely knew the answer to at the time. It was just one of those things where everything fell. And it's interesting to me, looking back on it, that although everything fell, I only beat Kevin by 1 point, because Kevin's that good that he doesn't need everything to fall. For him, yeah,
yeah.
I need everything to fall to be in within Kevin's vicinity. But he can just look at a quiz and just go, yeah, yeah, this is fine. I mean, I wouldn't, I wouldn't necessarily back him to know that Joe Alwyn was dating Taylor Swift, but he probably got that right. And it was just the day that everything fell into place. And it was 3 months after the diagnosis. And I mentioned in the book, I think you on my table. I can't remember.
I was on your table, but you know, as far as the book's concerned, not that's Sean Williamson's book. Yeah, yeah, I'm in that one. But
I'm aware. That's the weird thing is the story's been told already by Sean Williamson in a chapter of his book. Um, I didn't want to overload the book with names.
well, no, this is what I was thinking. It's actually what's the point of throwing my name in when I actually have no relevance to what's going on. I was there, but then so were 100 other
I
people.
think it was me, you, Sean Williamson, and
Barry,
Barry
yeah,
Humphrey, I think.
yeah.
And I started crying
Mm,
during the sport. I saw the questions and I realized I knew the answer to most of them, and I just started weeping, going,
mm,
this is what it was all about.
mm,
this is the day that it was all going to come together. And at that point, because I was leading at the halfway point, I thought I'm going to win. And then when I saw the questions, I thought, oh, I've got this. I'm actually going to win. And then when it turned out when they did the results, I'd finished level with Kevin, but Kevin had won on a tie break. I was genuinely absolutely devastated until I
mm,
saw the denouement of the tale, which is that Barry had incorrectly
mm,
marked me wrong on a question that I'd got 100% correct.
mm,
And as I said, the very first thing I did when I spotted it was go to Barry. And the very second thing I did was go to Kevin because I thought he
mm,
deserved the me to be polite and diligent and let him know
mm,
second that this had happened. And as it turned out, someone had marked him correct on what he got wrong that he noticed later on. And being the absolute gentleman that he is, he let Jay know.
mm.
Um, but it was a very dramatic way to win and an amazing emotional release. And it's just nice that once in my life a dream came true.
Mm.
It was the fairy, it's the absolute fairy tale ending.
Yeah.
And Pat and Kevin are so good
Mm.
that you never think to yourself you're going to beat both of them on the set. It never occurs to you that things could combine in such a way that you could beat both of them on the same day.
In another universe, people would make a film of this, and it would be the, oh no, I've lost, and whoa, hang on, no, there's an error, and yay, and then you have the joyous coda to the whole thing of the wedding and hundreds of people all kind of celebrating and it being absolutely joyous. But that's how it was. That's how your life was in that remarkable, I don't know, wasn't even a 6 month period, was it? From it been September to December, it was just.
Yeah, it was quite a year, and
Mm,
I it was amazing how many of the people at the wedding were quizzes.
mm,
It was a testament to how much I love the family.
mm,
I've been part of the family since 2008 now, and it's a family that I've grown to love for all its quirks and peccadillos,
mm,
the Rhodes holiday, the
mm,
various events that take place through the year. I love a buzzer quiz. I love a night out on the beers.
mm,
And social media has cemented the idea of it being a community and a family.
mm,
And it's these are all people whose friendships I treasure.
mm.
And sadly, things haven't gone well since 2019 in terms of the lockdown, and in terms of the fact that we lost John Jacob and we lost two of the guests at my wedding. Poor John Jacob and Dave Rainford passed away the following year. And that's always, a bittersweet part of the day for me that we no longer have them, but also part of what made the day special that they were there.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that was what I was meaning right at the start when I said it, but the family you find along the way, that quiz family. But that night there was your quiz family, there was your St. George's University family, there was um your Sinner Sesh um family, and I think it was a testament to, I guess, to you that actually all of those different groups, know you from different scenarios came together so well,
and
and
none of us
blended
knew at
so
the
beautifully.
time that in 4 months' time we were going to be living in a hell.
Yeah.
Uh, and so there is a bittersweet aspect to it. It was the
Mm,
last really big quiz social event
mm,
before the lockdown,
yeah.
and that will I'll always have that against
Mm,
a fair description of my wedding.
yeah, indeed. It was a marvelous day. Before I get on to my last question, you mentioned Kevin. In the book, there's a wonderful vignette when you first go to a QLL match, and it's almost like you're fanboying him, um, and kind of reciting achievements and the like back to him, and he kind of deals with it in a very Kevin way. Has that sort of experience of being on one side of it kind of taught you anything now you receive it as a celebrity?
Um, yeah, you don't know how people see you. Kevin would be not, was utterly bewildered to be meeting a fanboy. When I told him that I'd spent the last 12 months asking TV companies if they're interested in making a documentary about Kevin Ashman, I'd never met him when I was doing this. He looked utterly bewildered, as you can probably imagine. He's such a modest man and
Mm,
seemingly unaware of his greatness. But again, Kevin is, Kevin and to a less degree, Pat, are common themes in the
mm,
book. The enormous respect I have for them both as human beings and
mm,
quizzes, and it's a bit symmetrical in that 11 years after I first met Kevin, I'm handing him my paper to say, actually, I've beaten you. It's a weird moment because I know that Kevin is in a league that I will never approach, but not that one day. That one but and I've told Kevin about his role in the book, and he seems pleased
mm,
uh, to be a major part of the book. But he's an extraordinary human being, and
mm.
it's entirely deliberate.
Yeah.
But when I went to my first Quiz League in London match, I couldn't quite believe he was there. That's the level of hero worship I have. I was, you
Mm.
know, utterly stunned. I think if you remember, Ryan Taylor used to go to Grand Prix a long time ago. I took him to a Liverpool Grand Prix just so that he could meet Kevin Ashman, and he had a similar feeling of utter reverence
Mm.
uh, for the quiz demigod in our presence. I first saw somebody punch the air with delight because they'd beaten me in a Grand Prix, and I looked at it and I thought, oh wow, I've become a target, someone to beat. That person was Ian Toms, who would then go on to beat me in every other quiz that he ever did ever again.
Yeah.
But I just remember the delight on his face when he first beat me, and the realization that I had that I was now
Mm.
CJ. I was a person that people
No, no,
came
you're not CJ.
people came to be, and it was a weird pride that I felt at that
Yeah.
point.
No, it's lovely. No, as you said, the book stops in 2019. We've had 5 years since, so it seems odd to ask this question. But I guess, what next? What are the ambitions that are still out there for you to achieve? You've won the British Championships. You say you're struggling with the Worlds, but what is there? And it might not be quiz. It could be all sorts of things. But what are you aiming for now?
I don't really know, other than enjoying it. Um, I would really like the Grey Monks to have another. We as you know, we've been there or thereabouts since we won the
Mm,
title. I'd really love us to win the title again, but it's so
mm,
tough. The teams are so good now.
mm,
That and we started like a train last season and then sort of faded away in the second half. Another Grey Monks victory would bring me great delight.
mm,
But more than anything else, I just want to carry on enjoying it. I want to turn out to quizzes and go, I am having fun. I am, doing what I enjoy doing. And I think there's a sense there are now so many quiz tournaments out there. You do have to be a little bit cute and a little bit picky and go, I better pick the ones that I enjoy the most. Uh, but as long as I'm enjoying myself, that's fine. The gig I did a couple of days ago, somebody said, "How do you get better at trivia?" I used the word trivia because that's the word she used. And I said to her, the first thing you need to do is work out who you want to be. When you say getting better at trivia, do you want to be world champion? Do you want to be British champion? Do you want to win mastermind? Do you want to win university challenge? Do you want to win the chase? Do you want to win pointless? You got to work, or do you just want to enjoy yourself? And you got to work out who it is, the person that you want to be. There's too many people are chasing other people's dreams. Too many people are going in there going, why aren't I as good as them? Or why aren't I as good as them? And maybe it's because you're not spending 4 hours flashcarding every afternoon.
mm,
You want to work out what's conducive to your lifestyle, uh, and how do you want to improve and to what level you want to improve. There's no point in going, I want to win the World Quizzing Championships, unless you're prepared to learn the predominant ethnic language of every African nation, baseball World Series records, uh, the top 10 TikTokers in the world. You've got to get your hands dirty and you've got to learn that stuff. And if you're not prepared to do it, you're not going to be world champion. It's as simple as that. So it's not an easy question how you get better at quiz, but you've got to work out who do you want to be.
mm,
And for me, I've been who I want to be for a long time. I am, sad that I'm not as good at the World Quizzing Championships and the Olympiad / EQC as I used to be. but the level of hard work that I'd have to put in now to maintain where I was in 2017, 2018 and those competitions, I don't have time. I don't have time, and I don't have my full health. And I've got to, I'll let you into a little secret. I deliberately, that holiday in Brazil that I went to, I deliberately booked for the flight to arrive back in London after the buzzer quiz because I didn't want to be going back just for a buzzer quiz. I wanted to make sure that I enjoyed life first and that I put real life at the forefront. Um, because I think that's really important as well. You can't lose your life to this. I watched Victoria's interview about the sacrifice with you and the sacrifices she made to become world quizzing champion, and I think that's fine because that's her dream, and I think it's fine to make all those sacrifices because that's the thing that you've decided is going to bring you enormous happiness. But if it's not going to bring you happiness, there's no point in losing your quality of life over.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very wise words. And Victoria now is in a position where she's going to be reassessing to what degree she wants to go through all of that again, which is, again, it's about that perspective thing. It's
Yeah,
about,
exactly.
okay, you've reached that mountaintop. Do you really want to do it again, do it again, do it
Someone
again?
I admire massively is Jessie Honey, who won the World
Mm.
Quizzing Championships and the following year got drunk until 3 in the morning singing karaoke in a pub near Masham because he knew that he was not going to win the World Quizzing Championships the following day. He just decided he'd had enough of hard work and he wanted to be a family man. And I think that took enormous courage on his part to work for so long, got the World Championships and go, that's it, I'm done. And in many ways, that was my British Quiz Championships in 2019. I realised I'd achieved more than I could possibly have ever dreamt of achieving. And now everything's a bonus. And I'm happy with minor triumphs here and minor triumphs there. Because I know that realistically, in a world of Evan Lynch and Dow Jackson, and indeed other hungrier, leaner, more flashcardy quizzes, I'm not going to win a major championship again. It's just not going to happen. And that's fine. You've got to understand your own limitations as well.
But nobody can ever take that
Exactly.
championship
Yeah.
away from you.
It was my year.
Yeah. And it's wonderful to read about that. It's wonderful to read about your life in the book. But I hope it's a roaring success because I think people don't need to be into quiz to enjoy it. They don't need to be a fan of stand-up comedy to enjoy it because it's about a very human journey, some ups and downs, um, and it's thoroughly enjoyable. And yeah, I hope it gets the sort of circulation and sales that it deserves because it's
We
a
we,
really good
we,
piece
we
of
we
work.
just don't know, but it's very kind of you,
Yeah.
Gareth. And I'm very much aware that mine is an unusual life, and I wanted to put it to paper because, and also I want it to be a tribute not just to family but to
Mm,
friends. And
mm.
by friends, I mean it's a tribute to the quiz community, the comedy community, the medical community, and various, you know, as you said, different families that I've been part of over the years.
And it does that. So thank you very much for speaking to us, Paul.
Thank you very much, Gareth. It's a real pleasure. Thank you.
Cool. If you enjoyed that video, then there are more videos on screen that you may enjoy, including our review of Paul's book and our interview with Victoria Gross, the World Quizzing Champion. Also on screen are a list of our Patreon members. They support the work of All Things Quiz, and in return, they get access to things like our monthly quiz, our study group, and other benefits. And if you want to join our Patreon, go to patreon.com/allthingsquiz.